Hello and welcome to Dig It. I'm Peter Brown and hosting the show with me today is Chris Day. Hi Chris.
Hi Peter.
December in the garden. Wow.
I know, it's getting a bit chilly, isn't it, Peter?
We've had a few frosts, haven't we? I know my shed roof was white the other night. I was like, ooh, this is nice. And did you see the moon the other night, Chris?
It was rather interesting, wasn't it?
I've never seen it in real life. I think I've seen a picture of it a few years ago, but it's a moon halo or something like that, I think it's called, where the ice crystals in the upper atmosphere freeze and it, I guess, creates some sort of like rainbow effect off the moon and the reflections. And
that's it.
You get like a massive ring around the moon.
It looked great. And of course, Jupiter was literally next door to the moon. It was very, very close, wasn't it?
Yes, no, it's brilliant. Well, if you're interested, have a look at the website because I'll post my lovely photo off my phone of it. So.
And it was a very cold night that night too, wasn't it? Yeah, I think we got down to about -4 in North Buckinghamshire, so it was chilly.
And I guess, good reminder for us if we haven't got things fleeced up yet, definitely go out and get some fleece and wrap your slightly tender plants up because the cold times are coming.
That's it. And I suppose, it's quite timely as we're into chilly weather that it is National Tree Planting Week as we start the podcast up to the 25th of November through to the 3rd of December. So it's a time to basically get out there, and if you've got a tree to plant or you've got a project to get off the ground, then do a little bit of research, get your plants sorted and get cracking. And of course it's quite interesting because this year is quite special because it marks the 50th anniversary of the famous Plant a Tree in 73 campaign, which obviously everybody might remember from those days. And of course it was...
I was only 2 years old at that time, Chris. I
was 11, but even though I can't remember that. But it was plant a tree in 73, plant some more in 74. And then the rhyme went on and it got a little bit disparaging about trees dying, so we perhaps we need to rewrite the rule. But it's a great time. Plants are dormant now, and
that's it. The mail order hedging has all come in now at the garden centre, hasn't it?
Indeed, yes. Yeah.
I was looking at the quickthorn last week, and the leaves are still green.
I know.
I know they're starting to turn and go yellow, so they're obviously starting to go dormant. But I'm guessing the continent's been really warm as well.
I think it's followed a very similar pattern to us over here, Peter, as well. And of course, that's indicative of the very mild autumn we've enjoyed up until just a few days ago. And also on the diary dates, between the 7th and the 11th of December, we've got the Winter Flower Week at the Garden Museum over in London. It's quite interesting, actually. It's basically 5 floral designers are going to transform the Garden Museum, which is a really wonderful old building, into an environmentally friendly floral winter wonderland. So if you're in London, it might be worth making your way down to Lambeth Palace there to see it.
Yeah, Lambeth Palace. I was going to say, I think it's near the Tower of London, isn't it?
It is, just down the road. Just on the town.
I'm not very good with London geography, but brilliant, good stuff. And Friday the 8th of December... could be a good afternoon at the garden centre. We've got Tim, who we interviewed a couple of weeks ago.
Back in September, wasn't it? Yes.
Tim Chafor from Chafor Wines, just down the road here. He came in to chat to us on the podcast, and now he's coming into the garden centre for some tasting. So if you're in the area and you fancy trying some fine English wine, pop in on Friday the 8th.
Between 12 noon to 4 p.m. It should be a good afternoon, shouldn't it?
Definitely,
yeah. And throughout the months of November, well into January, the RHS are obviously promoting their glow events. So these are wonderful magical light shows around their main RHS gardens.
Okay, that's where you get to see sort of the lovely trees uplit and all these mood-enhancing lights and things. Yeah, it's really interesting. I know the one down in Aylesbury Way, the Rothschilds Mansion, that puts on a good show.
Yeah, so that's Wadston, isn't it?
Wadston. And then I think also local to here is Oxfordshire's, and you've got Blenheim Palace, haven't you? Of course,
literally, down the road from us here. So well worth a visit. And I'll post the links to the various gardens so people can see when they're on. But it's well worth a go. But you've got to book in advance for these events, so you can't just turn up on the afternoon, unfortunately. So
Don't forget to wear your boots, because quite often you're tramping through the gardens in the mud.
Indeed.
So I guess that brings us on to top 5. What we've been selling in our spring bulbs.
Yes, so this was an interesting one, Peter. So this is sort of the sales from basically the bulbs come in around about the 14th of August, isn't it? That's when the Dutch
mid-August.
released them to the UK. So going back order, number 5 was Tulip Purple Rain. One of the Triumph tulips. So they're one of these tulips which will repeat flower. It's one of these good doers.
Okay, is that a bit like the Red Robin?
That's it. Yeah, the good old Riding Hoods and all those sort of botanical tulips. They're really good. So it's good that Purple Rain. I suspect the name as well has something to do with the fact it sells so well. Number 4, Hyacinth Early Forcing. So obviously people keen on forcing hyacinths for Christmas and beyond. Number 3, Narcissi Mixed. The larger packs, which are obviously good value. So that, and then number 2, Amaryllis Dancing Queen. So this is this wonderful frilly red and candy white, big Triumph type flower. So big, huge blooms, wonderful for forcing for Christmas or into the new year now perhaps.
Yep.
And we've got some really good varieties this year from Taylor's. I noticed some really good premium size bulbs as well. So that's good. And that variety's been around for 20 years.
Okay.
So it's, probably not quite as long as the Dancing Queen as from ABBA, but not going far off.
Not far off, yeah.
And then number 1, which I'm not surprised at all, Peter, because I think it's such a good doer, Narcissi Tate.
Yeah. Well, it's a lovely dwarf. Perfect look. I mean, when I think of a daffodil, that's the one you picture in your mind, isn't it? It's always a good flower, a multi-headed.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
so
and
you get multi-stemmed flowers.
That's it. Yeah, and it's so versatile. You can put it into pots. You can grow it indoors. You can even put it in hanging baskets, and it doesn't look out of place. And of course, the flowers, because they're smaller, I always think they seem to last longer. I don't know. It's
it's a good, definitely a good little dwarf daffodil, and I think we're still just about time to get them. If you're really quick, get your bulbs in now.
Yeah.
You'll get away with it. I mean, tulips you'd probably be okay with, but whether snow drops and
it's getting a little bit late for those. But you go around garden centres and you pick up these sort of bargains at this time of the year. As long as the bulbs are in good heart, as long as they're fairly firm and they're not starting to sprout, you should be absolutely fine.
Okay, so maybe get some bulbs in for Christmas then.
Indeed, yes, indeed.
So, what's been in the news this month then, Chris? I guess first story for us to think about or discuss is the Adam Frost and Gardener's World Live at the NEC.
Yes.
Sounds like he's up to something exciting.
It does. It's this time of the year, Peter, they start to basically divulge what gardens we can expect to see during the summer, which is great. And it's good to see Adam Frost back. I mean, Adam's quite popular. Has been popular over the years at the Chelsea Flower Show and at Hampton Court, but I don't know if this is his first one at the NEC. But it looks interesting. It's got quite a nice theme, hasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a theme close to my heart about eating food. So it's a chef's, what's he calling it? A chef's garden table, is it?
That's it. Yes, that's it. Yeah.
Which, at the end of the day, I think my personal experience, and I'm sure loads of our listeners' experiences, is homegrown veg. Fruit is the best. It's
and
always good.
To grow something from scratch, even if it's just a few potatoes or a few raspberries or strawberries, there's nothing quite like the flavour and the enjoyment and the satisfaction, isn't it? Of producing
exactly
as well.
that. And the taste fundamentally is they might not quite look perfect, but they generally taste a lot better than the ones you get in the supermarket.
That's right. And it's interesting because obviously Gardener's World Live now also links into the Good Food Show at the same time.
Yeah.
So that's quite good because it gives you're showcasing how to grow your produce, but also how to use them in the kitchen as well. So we'll should look forward to seeing Adam's creation, obviously back in June of 2024.
That's it. And green peas, not something you normally expect to read in the same sentence as gardening, but they've done a Freedom of Information request about how many people are waiting for allotments. It's quite interesting.
It's staggering, actually, isn't it? Yeah. So basically, the data which has been released is that there are at least 174,183 applications basically sitting with local authorities across the whole of the UK. So that has basically doubled in numbers since 2011.
Your average waiting time is 3 years.
Yeah.
With some of the people having to wait up to 15 years for an allotment.
It's horrendous, isn't it? I think, it really does put a spell on it. And the waiting lists, I think at the top of the score there was it Sunderland City Council, and then some of the less ones, actually Richmond upon Thames and Lewisham in London. So you'd expect they'd have actually larger waiting lists. I don't know, but it's quite an interesting read, actually, isn't it?
Without a doubt, and at the end of the day, allotments are great open spaces that you can rent relatively cheaply, and if you haven't got a massive garden with enough space to grow vegetables, it's a perfect place that you can go to do some gardening.
Yeah, and locally as well, some allotments offer sort of half plots, don't they, or even quarter plots. So that's a good way. So if you do want to get on a waiting list, maybe if you're new, then maybe just be
put your name down for a half plot, because they do take a bit of work. I mean, my allotment's 30 metres, and it's 10 poles.
10 poles, right? Okay.
Which I think is it's 30 odd metres long, and it's about, I would say, 10 metres wide, 8 metres wide, and it's a good old space. I mean, you can grow masses down there, and I'm very blessed to have one. So I'd say if you haven't got space in your house, then put your name on an allotment waiting list, and hopefully in a few years' time you'll get one.
Well, if not before. Yes, indeed. Yes. And on the subject of plants, there's a news story in the Garden News magazine saying that scientists have suggested nearly half the known species could face extinction. This is quite a scary story, and it's basically they reckon that it's obviously part of the nature emergency, and it's obviously a report developed by Kew Gardens, Botanic Gardens there, of the state of the world, and basically they work with over 200 scientists to come up with all this data, and it doesn't make particularly good reading, and it is a little bit. It's
very scary, isn't it? I mean, there's a massive number of plants.
And when I've been watching the wonderful Planet Earth 3, I think, with Sir David Attenborough, when he makes regular suggestions about global warming and climate change. Then I suppose this makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? That our climate is changing, and we are losing so many different species, not of our own making, unfortunately. But also,
saying current rates, it could take more 40 years to name all the new plants that could be extinct by then. So the fact is that we haven't even got round to naming all the plants in this world, and yet we're killing them before they've even been sort of analysed by scientists.
That's it. Yeah. It just makes you wonder about priorities in the world, doesn't it? But I think they need to be, obviously they suggest that they better coordination between the botanical and the research there on taxa and regions, so we get a better picture of what is actually happening. They need to really buckle down and make sure that's done. Time is of the essence, as they say.
It's going to take them a little bit of time, though, Chris.
It is,
I don't know if you've seen a bit about fungus. To date, there's 155,000 species of fungus have been identified. However, estimates based on DNA analysis suggest there's about 2.5 million.
Wow. Gosh.
I mean, I know fungi are really important to us. And
they are,
all
indeed.
the sort of symbiotic fungi that live in the soil that help all the plants capture water and nutrients and all those sorts of things. But 2.5 million different types.
So it is literally the tip of the iceberg, isn't it? Literally,
Well, we'll see how that pans out, I guess.
Indeed. And the great thing is those sort of research, we are updated regularly. They do like to keep us informed, I think that's a good thing, to be honest with you, because we need to put a sense of realism to those figures. And the peat debate continues to rumble along, Peter.
As ever.
And I think there was quite a lot of discussion in the gardening trade. I think the HTA and the GCA and the RHS.
Yeah.
Everybody's been gunning at the fact that it wasn't mentioned in the Queen's speech. So
King's speech.
The King's speech, yes. Yes. So why wasn't it mentioned? No one's quite sure, because obviously you have to set. Obviously, that is the way of setting the process of parliamentary acrim, isn't it?
Yeah. What's happening and what we're going to have, what new laws and things might come into existence.
Yeah. So hopefully we will get a bit more of an involved questions on that. I think it has been. I think Horticulture Week magazine is looking into investigating it further. So we need to know more of what's.
Well, there's sort of rumours in the trade that it's going to be pushed back.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's not in the speech, it kind of says, well, maybe that's why. But we shall see. I mean, at the end of the day, if we've got some good alternatives, that's what we really need. And if we haven't, then we'll see.
But there's obviously a lot of growers. But it's interesting. The RHS they've really taken this to heart, because obviously they're going peat free too. But they're trying to initiate a list of nurseries who obviously produce plants for the RHS, but also produce them for home gardeners, which these nurseries are completely peat-free. When I say completely peat-free, they don't use it in any form of their propagation as well.
Okay.
So this is a list which is going to be quite interesting, so people can make an informed choice when they're buying the plants, that they know that no peat has been used in the production. Because obviously
that's it. If you're getting a plug plant that's peat
even though it
based and the seeds have grown in that, and then it gets transplanted into a bigger pot, and it's more difficult. An interesting debate, that one, isn't it? But I think if you've got a list of totally peat-free growers, then
it's useful, isn't it? It's a useful start, isn't it? And I'm sure we're going to be kept updated on a regular basis. But there is one grower who's been sort of pointed out now to be completely 100% peat-free, and that's Greenwood Plants, and they're a big specialist. They supply a lot of plants to the amenity trade, so that's for parks and amenity planting. So, not necessarily to garden centres. So again, it's a different route where plants have to be produced in quantity. But they're now 100% peat-free, and they've just won the Peat-Free Grower of the Year award, Horticultural Trades Association award. So that's good credentials, isn't it? That they're moving in the right direction.
Well, I think if you've got the right crop, it can be done. It's not always the case with some of the harder species of plants, but certainly if 75% could be grown easily and peat-free, then why shouldn't we have those available to the public?
And I do feel sorry, because obviously a lot of our growers producing plants for the garden centre. We have a really good perennial producer, Chapel Cottage Plants. Chatting to them, they say that they've had to tweak their formulation of peat-free for the crop they're growing. So and that obviously takes time and money and organisation. So there is a cost to this, which, as I suspect, has to be passed on to us as a retailer, which means that the customer unfortunately has to pick up the bill too. So
And moving on to hotter topics.
I
hear there's a new chili in the hood, or in America there is anyway. So Ed Curry, Ed Curry, founder of Pucker Bucket Pepper Company, has crossed a Carolina Reaper, which, from my understanding, is the hottest one in the world at the moment.
Yes, apparently so. Yes,
with another breed, and he's created a new brutally hot pepper, which his old Carolina Reapers, or should I say, Carolina Reapers, normally hit the Scoville scale at 1.64 million units. This new one's 2.693 million.
Lordy, that's hot
units. But the description after he's one of a few people in the world who's ever eaten a whole Carolina Reaper, and he's eaten one of his new ones, and the description of what happens afterwards isn't great, is it?
Yeah, I mean, he says here, after trying the pepper, only one of the 5 people ate a whole one. Ed reported that the feeling of heat for 3.5 hours. He said then the cramps came, and I had to lay flat on a marble wall for approximately an hour in the rain, groaning in pain. So, There you go.
We don't recommend eating these
Don't try
peppers.
that at home, please.
But he is going to hopefully release it for some sauces. So Mr. Reggae sauce might like some
Definitely
to spice his ones up.
And it's called Pepper X, which I suppose, in view of the fact that Twitter went to an X, it seems a bit appropriate. And of course, it is now a World Guinness record, so which is great, isn't it? But
well, for those of you who like hot peppery foods,
definitely
it's fantastic. Me, I'll pass.
I think I definitely will pass on that. But well done to.
It's a good story anyway.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah, well known too. Good old Ed Curry. And going from the sublime to something a little bit more sensible here with good old Hilliers Nurseries. Of course, Hilliers world famous for producing those wonderful plants and involved in bringing lots of new plants to the gardening world over the years.
But they're celebrating their 160th anniversary next year.
Indeed, actually, it's incredible, isn't it?
Which is fantastic. That's a really long legacy of growing plants, isn't it?
Yeah, so basically the chairman, Robert Hilliers, effectively standing down from his position, and it's going to be handed over to his son, George Hillier, who will take the role of chairman from the 1st of January 2024. So the company continues from strength to strength.
Yeah, and stays in the Hillier family, which is fantastic.
Yes,
So wish them the best of luck with that.
And I was going to say, Peter, if anybody is out and about, through December, and you want to see a really good winter garden, then Romsey, which is the Hillier Arboretum down in Hampshire, is well worth a visit. I can highly recommend it. It's a fantastic place if you want to see winter plants grown to amazing quality, but also to get great ideas for your own garden too.
Fantastic. Thanks for that, Chris. And what are we on to now? Double GEMA winner?
Oh, right, yes, which is...
Treadstone gloves. Well, we've been selling their gloves for a while, and they brought out a new range of gloves made out of recycled materials,
which are really nice. They're really very colourful.
Have you tried them?
I did try them on, actually.
I've not actually seen them yet. I know I asked for them to be bought in. I haven't actually seen them yet. That's good. And they also do a jute rope trellis, which I know Elliot did a nice display of back in the spring when we first had it in. It looks really good.
Really nice. I think it's a really good product. It shouts sustainability all over the place, doesn't it?
Definitely. And I'm guessing it'd be a lot easier to hang. If you've got a big old bit of wooden trellis, you've got to either put it on posts or screw it to something or what have you. Whereas this, couple of little hooks and
off you go.
Off you go. But
and it looks so and it's so naturalistic as well. It just sits perfectly in the garden situation. But they've won a sustainability award through GIMA, which is it's the Garden Trade Awards, isn't it? Which is an important one for any products you see in garden centres up and down the country. The suppliers basically put them in for these prestigious awards, and well done to Treadstone. Yeah,
definitely. And the Chelsea Garden designs have been released for next year.
So this is quite exciting. So obviously we see the Chelsea Flower Show on our TV screens in the third week in May, but basically they're released, all the details of the garden designer and maybe the sponsor, and usually some really good design artwork is put together with a bit of a breakdown of what the garden is about, whether it's sustainability or wildlife. So those have been released now. So if people go to go to our show page, we'll have the links to the RHS to find a little bit more about these amazing gardens and how they'll unfold over the next few months.
Because there's a bit of controversy about the children's garden and whether it was the first one that Chelsea were ever going to have, but we won't delve too much into the controversies yet. And
bit of politics, I think.
It's Tom Stewart Smith returning, and
fantastic designer.
Anne-Marie Powell, who is doing a National Trust garden.
It's going to be called the Octavia Hill Garden, named after Octavia Hill, who of course was one of the founders of the National Trust back in 1838. So, and then you've got a nice mixture of the sort of charity gardens, the National Autistic Society, Muscular Dystrophy, and also climate change gardens, Peter, as well, which I think is
Water Aid, water retention. Yeah, they're all there. It's going to be a good show, I think, this year.
I think it is, yes. So
sorry, I'll say that again. A good show next year.
Next year, indeed.
Getting my years muddled up. Yeah, no, it's good. Brilliant.
And just one other little thing on the RHS. They have opened their very first standalone shop. So obviously we're familiar with RHS shops. If you go to the gardens, they're usually people make a beeline for those after they've walked around the gardens and perhaps had a cheeky coffee or cake in the restaurants. But they're actually going and venturing into the
they're breaking into retail
in a big way on the high street.
Yeah, or on the high street now. That's it.
This first one's at Blue Water Shopping Centre, which is an amazing place just over in Kent there. And the reason for developing this first of perhaps many is the increase obviously in houseplants, because obviously houseplants sales have rocketed as we've fallen in love again with our foliage houseplants and flowering plants. And obviously they've seen an increase,
a gap in the market,
and they're filling it. Yeah, so it's almost like a florist shop, but with a more RHS base. I would have thought is probably the best way of describing it. Yes, but
interesting. Go and have a look around.
Indeed, yeah.
Cool. And snap up rare heritage seeds.
Yes. So as we're in December, people start thinking about seed sowing next month, don't they, Peter? So it's Sue Kent, who's one of the obviously regular presenters on Gardener's World. She's basically suggested that a couple of varieties she's been growing, the bright purple bean Q Blue, which was apparently handed down by 3 generations gardeners, and also a lettuce asparagus, which I've never seen before, actually. I've never come across that plant at all. That's one which she's been highlighting as well. And basically, it's if you are a member of the Garden Heritage or the Garden Organics Heritage Seed Library, you can take advantage of ordering 6 packs of seeds with your membership, which is rather good. And we're running up to Christmas. It might be a nice little Christmas present for somebody who's...
Well, it's a good way to give someone who's into gardening a amazing membership, sort of club membership. To be fair, Garden Organic are very, very good at what they do. And the vegetables and seeds that you can get from them have... in our experience anyway, always been amazing flavours. So I think if you can find something that, like a Chinese cucumber, which I've never even heard of.
Why not? Yeah,
get it.
And and unfortunately, you just won't find those seeds on your packeted varieties in garden centres. That's the thing. These are very, very rare. Yes,
brilliant. And the HTA are welcoming a publication from the House of Lords, aren't they, Chris?
So this is a long-awaited publication. It's been a year in the making from the House of Lords Horticultural Committee Special Inquiry, which is looking at recognising the importance of UK horticulture of a key deliverer of environmental targets. So it's across all areas of horticulture. So whether it's rural, rural situations, parks, open spaces, production of food, and also garden centres and nurseries. I think it's a very important document, especially as we've seen some interesting stats.
Incredible stats, aren't they? I mean, basically, they did a survey of 5 to 16-year-olds, and do you know what percentage can't identify an oak tree?
Well, I don't know, what, 20, 25, 30%?
82% cannot identify what an oak tree looks like.
That's horrendous. That's... Wow.
50% could not identify a bluebell.
Oh, right.
And one of my favourite summer lawn flowers, the dandelion.
Oh, yes. Popular yellow flowering favourite. Yes.
Yeah. Only 42% could identify a dandelion.
No, that's
ludicrous. I wonder, if you're giving them daisies, do they still make daisy chains, children? I mean, would they be able to identify that?
I would hope they would be able to identify a daisy. Whether they make daisy chains, I don't know. But
honestly, Chris, that surprises me. I mean, I appreciate we are in a relatively smaller sector in society, but equally, not to be able to recognise an oak tree.
An oak tree, and just general observation. So it basically, does that fall down to the school? Is that an education thing, or is that just a social thing from parenting? I mean, is it just a skill transfer we understand, or our peer groups, or is everybody sort of stuck to their screens and not looking at nature?
Is that it?
Yeah.
That Minecraft, the green blocks on that don't really represent anything.
They don't indeed. The
grassy or
you'll never get an
whatever
oak tree
they
out
are.
of one of those graphics, will you? No.
That's it. Well,
Yeah. Well,
fair
let's
enough.
just hope this report moves something in the way of helping, to ensure the relevance of what we do in horticulture, and hopefully to spread the word that actually learning about plants and understanding them is actually quite good fun.
Definitely. Well, it's great. I mean, we've had a whole life of it, so
Yeah, indeed. Yep.
it's definitely kept us too interested. So that's very
That's
good.
the most important thing, isn't it? Yes. And talking about somebody who's been inspired over the years, and we gave him a mention before, Sir David Attenborough is in the news.
Okay.
He has been presented with some seeds from the Easter Island.
All right.
Basically to the tropical nurseries in Kew Gardens. So this particular plant is basically endemic on the Easter Island, and this basically the doctor of the archaeological and author and cultural changes of the Easter Islands has basically given Sir David 30 seeds of this particular plant, Sapporo toromoro, which is a flowering tree species. I've never heard of it, I have to say. I'll have
We'll have to Google that one later,
yeah,
Chris.
Yeah, we'll put that on the link.
So 0% of us know
that one, yes. But then if it is endemic to a particular wonderful island, then we
it's
probably
a bit
left.
rarer than an oak tree, isn't it?
And certainly a dandelion. Yeah. So that's going to be good. But it's great, isn't it, that Kew Gardens is seen to be the place to go with your endangered species.
That's brilliant.
Fantastic,
And
yeah.
I mean, Sir David Attenborough, he's highlighted so many things about nature to all of us, I think,
Most
through his
definitely.
lifetime. So
For
it's
sure.
only fair that he should be donated with such a wonderful
Yeah.
sort of present. But
Yeah,
it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. So watch this space. If you go to Kew Gardens in the next decade, I'm sure you'll see the trees growing rather well in one of the tropical palm houses there.
Hopefully, yeah.
Yes.
And just in case you're not bored enough yet of us chatting about oak trees, there's another one's hit the news.
There is.
So, obviously, that lovely old sycamore in the Sycamore Gap that was felled. We've got another tree in the news now. It's a 550-year-old oak tree
Yes.
that Charles Darwin may have walked past.
Maybe,
On his
supposedly,
little
yes,
explorations.
according to the news report. Yes.
Yeah. And it's a big issue whether they're going to fell it to make way for a bypass up in Shropshire. But
Yes. I
the
don't know.
Northwest Relief Road
Yes.
is potentially going to have it bulldozed. I mean,
It's an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, somebody suggested, just why didn't they make the road a little bit more bendier just to go round it? So that might be the easiest solution rather than removing it. But it's, a 550-year-old tree has obviously got some presence in the landscape, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Whether it is linked, it has been dubbed the Darwin tree, but it's all supposed. There's no actual proof, which that shouldn't be the reason. I mean, it's an old oak tree and it's an ancient oak tree. But, it does make you think that some decisions perhaps need a little bit more forethought, perhaps. I mean, I don't think that, the definitive answer is, and I don't know the other side of the story as well, because obviously there's always two sides to these planning objections too. But, who will see, I'm sure, in the weeks to come, whether it is retained.
well, I guess the real question would be if it was such a magnificent tree and it had a tree preservation order on it,
Yes.
then bulldozing it for a dual carriageway, I'm guessing, would have been a lot harder. But
Yeah, but
maybe
there's
because
no,
it's just in a hedgerow on a farmer's field,
then it loses a little bit of its houses as well.
it's possibly not
No.
seen by some as the most important tree. But at the end of the day, 550-year-old tree,
Yeah, it's
certainly sucked a bit of carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere in its time, hasn't
it
it?
will have seen a few stories over the 550
Yeah.
years too. That's true.
Definitely.
Yeah, and the other story, piece which only literally dropped the last couple of days. That's why I've tried to include it in the podcast today. Is the flat fens of eastern England were once dominated by forests of yew trees. Who would have known?
Yeah, only a yew forest. I don't
Yew
think
forest.
I've ever been to a yew forest.
No.
Yew trees are such beautiful,
Oh,
graceful trees. And
Beautiful indeed.
it would be nice to find out if there are any yew forests anywhere in the UK and go and have a look at one because, I mean, I had no idea the fens were covered in yew trees 5,000 years ago.
Yeah, so the reason we know this is that the farmers have been suddenly, basically by obviously doing their earthworks and soil cultivation, actually been exposing ancient fossilised yew bark. I mean,
but it's looks like whole sort of logs and branches and roots and all sorts, isn't it? I mean, it's amazing.
So they've been preserved in peat over the years. So obviously the peat has obviously acted as a preserving agent, and just like I suppose we see over the years that if you go to Whitby and you see the Araucaria, the monkey puzzle tree, which is forced down and creates the Whitby jet in the same sort of way. That's a form of preservation, isn't it? This is exactly the same way, and quite amazing. And it's obviously made the headlines in a lot of the newspapers and on the BBC website. But obviously you have to go back because obviously, as somebody said here, finding these old trees in the fens, it was completely unexpected. It would be like just turning a corner in rural Cambridgeshire and seeing an Egyptian pyramid. You wouldn't expect it. So yeah, it is a real rarity. But again, what happened 4,000 years ago for that all to happen? Probably climate change.
Maybe, the North Sea decided to go into the fens and flood the area, and obviously seawater and yew trees, I don't suppose, mix very well.
Nope.
And that would have killed them all off, and then they just rot down, or not as the case may be, because they've been preserved in the peat. So very interesting.
Yeah.
Excellent. Good stuff. So... I guess that takes us to that part of the show where you give us some jobs to do.
Yes, and it's December, so I'm going to be fairly kind.
Good stuff. Thanks, Chris. So what should we be doing at the moment?
Well, I suppose, apart from obviously the Christmas preparations and the festivities, a few things you might want to be doing. Certainly, I'm going to be doing with my fruit trees. I'm going to be giving them a winter wash. So remove those mummified fruits, which often appear on, which basically are basically harbouring potential disease and pests, mainly the pests too. And if you give your plants and trees then a really good brushing with some winter wash with a Growing Success one we do, and you find at the garden centre, it's probably the best one to apply. Gets into all the nooks and crannies, so if you can almost like power wash your trees, but at a gentle setting, shall we say?
Yeah, that's it.
That would be good. Obviously, the weather has been so changeable, and we've had some obviously nasty storms over the last few weeks. So make sure everything's nicely secured. Especially planting trees with National Tree Week and putting any new plants in. Putting in new hedging. Make sure
check your stakes and the ties.
Make sure they're all in there as well. And likewise, the leaves were very late in coming down, but obviously the laying in some parts of your garden. Make sure they're cleared. Use them for leaf mould, and obviously make sure the area is nicely swept and not a trip or a slip hazard, because obviously that's the last thing you want to happen running up to the festivities is
a sore wrist or
sore
something.
Wrist, definitely. One thing I was looking at my taps outside. Make sure you insulate them if they are very exposed. If we're getting down to below sort of point. So you can buy off the shelf tap covers, or you can just lag them temporarily, unless you have to have good access to the water supply during the winter. So make sure they're all there as well. Complete your winter digging. So there you go. Maybe you should do that after Christmas. Maybe your winter digging, so you can
burn off some calories.
So that would be good. But obviously, if you can rough dig your soils, especially if you're on clay soil, and expose that to the weather, that will help to break it down for creating a good tilth next year. Yep. And if you haven't already done it, obviously get out there and continue your rose prunings as well, especially climbers. If you've not trimmed them back just yet, they can be cut back by half, so whatever height they are, take them down by half. That should be good. And get yourself and if you haven't got a good pair of secateurs, put that on your Christmas wish list as well, because I know we've got the Eva Sharp secateurs in the shop at the moment, Peter. They're really nice, and we've got some nice wolf secateurs in too. So treat yourself. So you've got something good to put there.
Secateurs. I can remember when we went to Pershaw, on the equipment list there was a pair of Felcos.
Oh yes.
I've still got mine today.
I have to say, I got mine. Mine are not in the best of state. In fact, you can get spare parts for Felcos, can't you?
Yeah.
So, I meant mine needs a bit of an overhaul. But yes, a good.
But they don't go wrong, do they?
They don't.
If you look after them and spray them with a bit of WD-40 every now and again to clean them.
Yeah, and you can get some nice new blades if they've got a little bit, or you can obviously get a blade sharpener as well, can't you, to keep them in good condition as well. And then really, it's the nice things to do at this time of year, isn't it? Choose a Christmas tree.
Yeah. That's on my job list.
Yes.
Definitely get a nice Christmas tree. Yeah. And what do you reckon, Chris? Should we go for a potted tree or a cut tree?
You see, cut trees are farmed. They're very sustainable these days, aren't they? So,
well, the ones we sell here are all grown in England.
Yeah, so UK grown.
I'm going to say Hampshire. I think they come from. So somewhere down south, and they're not a million miles away.
No,
they're replanted.
Yes,
every year, so it's not like you're cutting down forests just for the decoration.
Yeah. I think to answer your question, I think if you want a smallish tree, perhaps up to 4 foot, so a small tree for the house, and you just want a potted tree works really well. If you want anything taller than that, I think I would go for a nice Nordsman with those large needles, obviously no drop or little drop. Attributes to them. I think they can make a lovely tree. Just make sure you keep them really well watered. I think that's the key, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. It always amazes me. You chop the bottom off the tree and stick it inside and put it in. Like I've got one of these tree stands with a sort of bowl of water on there that it sits in, and generally the next day you're topping it up with about a pint of water. And over the sort of festive period, it takes less and less water as it sort of slowly dies off. So it is important, I think, to make sure you do water them a bit, certainly at the start.
Definitely, and also position of your tree as well, isn't it? So make sure it's away from any direct heat for obvious safety reasons, but keep it away from the radiator. If it has to be near a radiator, maybe turn the radiator down a little bit, perhaps.
Yep.
But certainly somewhere where it's cool. The coolest part of your room is always the best place for a Christmas tree. I think in the scheme of things too, but
I think that's always the case, isn't it? You want it in your living room so you can see it, and then on Christmas Day all the children can come down and enjoy opening their presents from under the tree, which, like you say, it's not always the best room in the house. Somewhere like a cooler hallway or
indeed, it might lose
what have you might be better, but
so it's a central point, isn't it? A central focus of it. And I suppose we should give a shout out to Ripple Africa. Again, yes,
that's true.
So as also we're helping our international charity who are locally based in Buckingham. So we're flying the flag for Ripple Africa again.
Yeah, we give them a small donation for every tree we sell, and they go off and plant a new one. And hopefully rewood an area. And there's something else in the news recently, wasn't there, about the Kenyan
That's right, yes.
tree planting. I think, was it 15 billion trees they're trying to plant in Kenya?
So what they want is every individual in Kenya to plant 10 trees a year. So after 10 years, that's 100 trees. So that the 15 million is their obviously their final goal. Apparently, that part of the country is very underpopulated with trees. It only has about 8% tree cover, whereas globally we're about 30%. So they want to increase the amount of, and obviously that's going to help with the CO2 capture.
Well, 15 billion trees is it's an enormous number, but I suppose. I'm going to say some of them won't make it, but equally the ones that don't make it will rot down and improve the soil. And if you're doing that much planting,
that's right.
You'd hope it will make a massive difference to the sort of climate out there. And
but not only was it tree planting, but they were actually going to get a day's bank holiday effectively to do that tree planting, wasn't it? That was the incredible part of the story.
Fantastic. That's one.
So good on that. So so Ripple Africa, we'll make sure there's a link on the show notes to our charity for this Christmas.
Brilliant, great stuff. Okay, Chris. Well,
that's another one. That's another year.
Definitely, and have a wonderful Christmas. And thank you to all our listeners for listening. And
Indeed.
Hope you've enjoyed the show.
Yeah, and if you do enjoy Dig It, please tell your friends and subscribe. And let us know if you want to, if you'd like to hear other guests. We'd love to hear your views and
or any subjects any subjects or people you want us to try and get a hold of and interview. And it's been another great year.
It has indeed. Thanks, Peter.
Chris.
Today's show was brought to you by Buckingham Garden Centre and Nurseries. The show was hosted by Chris Day and Peter Brown. The show was produced by Peter Brown. And our thanks to Chiltern Music Therapy for providing the music. Thanks for listening.
At Chiltern Music Therapy, we want everyone to know the difference that music can make in their lives. From parents and their premature babies in hospital to grandparents with dementia. We provide music therapy and community music services to people of all ages and needs across England. We work both digitally and in person in people's homes, care homes, schools, hospitals and hospices. Find out more at chilternmusictherapy.co.uk.